and welcome to Straight from the Fund Manager. Joining us today is Arun Sundaresan, Head ETF for Nippon India Mutual Fund. He's here to talk to our viewers about the upcoming NFO on Nifty 500 Equal Weight Index Fund. The Nifty 500 Equal Weight Index Fund NFO opens on the 21st of August and closes on the 4th of September 2024. This is an offering from the Nippon India Mutual Fund stable. To begin with, Arun, thank you very much for joining us today on the show. Start by telling our viewers what is the concept of an equal weight index and what are its key advantages.
So, Samina, generally when it comes to diversified equity funds, particularly index funds, you think about a Nifty Sensex fund or even a mid cap or a small cap. These funds tend to be market cap weighted, more specifically free float market cap weighted. The components of the index, so how much weightage a particular stock will be determined by the free float market cap. To make it simple, the larger the size of the stock, it will have a higher representation in the index. For example, if you take, let's say, you want to invest in 500 stocks, Nifty 500 stocks, the top 20 stocks itself could account for as much as, let's say, roughly about 45%. So while you're under the impression that you're investing in 500 stocks, effectively 20 stocks account for almost half of what is happening in the fund. So the performance of the fund is largely influenced, whether it is good or bad, by a few stocks, which are the large stocks, and not by all stocks. The concept of equal weight is exactly the opposite. You're not investing very heavily in certain number of stocks, but you're making investments equally in those number of stocks which are part of the index itself. So this is the basic difference between normal, which is a market cap weighted fund, vis-a-vis an equal fund. Each of them has its own advantage, disadvantage, but they're very different. The risk return profiles are very, very different. They're not comparable in that sense.
Arun, tell us about the Nifty 500 Equal Weight Index. What does it consist of and how is it different from the Nifty 500 index itself?
Sure. Like the name itself suggests, right? Nifty 500 equal weight. What this fund does is it makes equal investment into 500 stocks. So basically, roughly 0.2% will be invested in all the 500 stocks, regardless of the size or regardless of the performance or any other parameter. It is equally invested in 500 stocks. So this is the concept of Nippon India Nifty 500 Equal Weight Index Fund. On the other hand, the Nifty 500 index is a market cap weighted index, which means that not all stocks will have equal weightage. Some of the stocks, given the free float market cap, if the stock is big in size, the weightage will be high, and correspondingly it will keep coming down. So all the stocks are not equal. So therefore, they're very, very different in terms of how they operate, in terms of what they bring to the table, in terms of risk return.
Right. Arun, you started this conversation, and like the name suggests as well, this is an equal weight index fund. Now, if it is an equal weight index fund, does it still require rebalancing? And if yes, why does it require it? And how often does the fund manager do it?
So this particular index has two types of rebalancing. One, a weightage. The weightage of the stocks get rebalanced on a quarterly basis. So that's number one. The constituents itself undergo changes once in 6 months. So that's a semi-annual rebalancing in which constituents, some of these stocks could go out of the index and some other stocks could replace that. That happens on a semi-annual basis. So that's the frequency of the rebalancing. Now, why is rebalancing required? So any index fund, you need rebalancing because you are investing basis a particular rule. And if that rule gets breached, if the idea is to invest equally in 500 stocks, and at some point in time, let's say one stock becomes a larger proportion, another stock becomes a lesser proportion, you would want to reset that to equal weight at a decided frequency. In this case, that happens to be on a quarterly basis, in the sense that you started with, let's say, 0.2% weight, equal weight for all 500 stocks to start with. And let's say a set of stocks did very well. So their weightages would go up, right? So at the end of the quarter, when the rebalancing happens, you prune that down, you cut that down and bring it back to 0.2% again. So which means that whatever appreciation has happened, that gets culled out, that gets spread to the other stocks. So in that way, automatically there is some element of profit booking that happens, and you keep doing that, as you go along every quarter. And semi-annual basis, some stocks which from beyond the 500, which are doing well, so those might come into the index. Certain stocks could move out of the index. So that is the constituent rebalancing that happens on a semi-annual basis.
Arun, just a follow up on that. While this is the planned periodic rebalancing that takes place at a fund level, but what does it ever happen that a stock may see a significant move and that could change its percentage or allocation in the portfolio? So, do you, in such conditions or situations, do out of planned or unplanned rebalancing to the portfolio?
Oh, that does not happen. So this is fixed. It can happen only once in quarter.
Okay.
In the meantime, whatever movements happen, that will continue. But then, you can expect that number not to be very exorbitantly different from where it started. For example, for a stock from 0.2% to become 0.4%, for example, which itself looks like a small number, but then the stock should have doubled vis-a-vis the rest of the index, right? So,
Right.
those things do happen, but few and far in between. But we don't do anything in the meantime till such time the rebalancing happens once in a quarter.
Right. Arvind, so this is an asset which is equities, but it's in the form of passive investing largely, right? What category of investors would this be most suited for, you think?
So number one, as you pointed out, the underlying end of the day, this is an equity product, and equity comes with higher risk and more return potential. So correspondingly, investors in their mind should think about a long term. The definition of long term is not something which is static, it can be relative. But however, investors should understand that there can be phases, sometimes slightly longer phases, where equities can go through downturn, there can be higher volatility, etc. So they'll be prepared in their mindset, to have a slightly longer time horizon in their mind to start with. Number one. The other point is obviously equity investments are meant for those investors who are willing to take that risk in the hope of getting higher returns. So it is suitable for those type of investors. Specifically about this strategy, given that this is a broad-based investing, you're not investing in a specific part of the market. Here you're investing into 500 stocks, right? And 500 stocks, what you essentially get is the top 100 stocks are large cap stocks, which accounts for 20% in this portfolio. The next 150 stocks account for 30% of the portfolio, which is mid cap. The remaining 250 stocks account for 50%. So basically 30% mid cap and 50% small cap is what you're going to get. So that when compared to, let's say, even within equity, let's say when compared to a Nifty or a large cap, etc., is high risk, high return. To that extent, I would say that this product is very high risk and with a potential for higher return as well. So investors will have to keep all of these things in mind.
Right. Arun, you already told us who this is most suited for, but can you also tell us why should one invest in a Nippon India 500 equal weight index fund over the other broader market based index funds?
There are other equal weight indices also available, but they are available for different parts of the market. For example, on 50, you'll be able to invest across 500 stocks equally. Again, as I said, no particular strategy is the best or works at all point in time. So this would be suitable. This will be ideal for those investors who have this perspective that I do not want to focus on only one part of the market, which is the large cap, or limit myself to a very specific part of the market. Rather, I want to broad base my investing. I want to make investments across the board. In this case, in 500 companies, the top companies. And by doing that, I get exposure to a large cap, mid cap, as well as small cap. So it will be for those investors who are seeking broad based investing and not just limiting themselves to a very specific part of the market. And within that, also not be dependent on a few set of stocks to lead their performance. Here, on the contrary, you're saying that I am putting my eggs across all 500 equally. I am not, really rooting for or concerned about some large stocks doing, and that should determine my returns. Rather, let it be the whole set of 500 stocks working for me.
Right. So it definitely gives you a more diversified basket to invest in. Also, very lastly, Arun, we've all heard what happened in the budget. Give us a sense of what is the taxation now in this fund?
So, being an equity fund, from the time of investment, if you make a redemption, if you sell your units after 1 year, so 1 year is a threshold. After 1 year, then it is considered as long-term capital gains. Whatever gains you have is considered as long-term capital gains, and that will be taxed at 12.5%. Anything less than that, suppose you buy now and if you sell within 1 year from the time of your investment, then any gains arising out of that will be short-term capital gains. That will be taxed at 20%.
Right. Thank you very much for that, Arun. But if you're interested and you're watching the show, if you're interested to invest in the Nifty 500 Equal Weight Index Fund, the NFO opens on the 21st of August and closes on 4th September. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Thank you, Arun, for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.